Welcome back to another episode of Nacoa's Lunchtime Lives, a series of live interviews where I speak to people that have advocated for Nacoa and COAs alike. Now, these normally go out live across one of our social media platforms, so do make sure that you follow us there if you don't already, because these are great to watch along live with as well. And in this episode, I speak to the chairperson and founder of the Sikh Recovery Network, Jaz Rai. Now, here at Nacoa, we have a project called Widening Access, where we're looking at the struggles that people from different demographics and cultures face when trying to interact with Nacoa or the services that they might need. And Jaz Rai is one of the people that we've been working alongside in that to help look at the difficulties that these people might face. And in this lunchtime live, we talk about Jaz's story, his childhood growing up with his own father who struggled with alcohol, and then Jaz's own struggles as he went on in his adulthood to struggle with it, and the different kind of problems that people from similar cultures may face in being able to seek the support that they need in those situations. It's a really, really interesting conversation. Jaz Rai shares like really openly and courageously, and we're really grateful for him for doing that. And I definitely enjoyed and learned a lot from the things that Jaz was able to share with us. So some great interaction again from the people that were watching along live as well. So if this is the first time that you've ever been here, do make sure that you've subscribed to our channel, because we'll be updating with lots more interviews as and when they come. And I hope you take as much from this as I did. There you go. Jaz, can you hear me?
I can indeed, Josh.
You can, good. Good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Is that okay like it is, or do you want it the other way?
No, you're good. That's good. I can see your face, and so we're good. I'm just trying to adjust mine so that you don't just get my chin. There we go. That's a little bit better. So look, Jaz, I was just sort of telling everybody that's already with us and the people that may watch this at a later date that at Nacoa, we have a project that you're involved in, that you've been helping and supporting us with, and we're going to get into that, called Widening Access. And that's about reaching people that potentially may be part of demographics and different cultures that may face different kind of struggles and issues than other people might face in terms of reaching some of the support that they deserve. So before we kind of get right into that and what that means and the way that you're supporting that, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction into who you are and what you do in the work that you do, rather than me trying to do you a disservice.
Thank you, Josh, and can I thank you also for this opportunity as well. I feel blessed to do this with you guys and to be even supporting you with the project. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Been in recovery now 12 years. Celebrated 12 years in January. Wow. And as a Punjabi Sikh, I was quite active from a young age in my own community. I'm from Derby. It was a small community of Sikhs, Punjabi Sikhs, and I got involved with the temple, and I started playing the tablas with the priests, got involved on the committees. So I got quite well known in Derby through my work through the temple. So my addiction, when my addiction really took hold of me, it was very difficult to keep it secret or keep it to myself, because people would see me out on the streets or in pubs, clubs, or at weddings, just completely drunk, and really, worse for wear and making a fool of myself. So, in 2008, I got caught drink driving for the third time. I was involved in mainstream politics as well. I was standing as a councillor for a mainstream political party. I was on the temple committee as well. And as you can see, I'm from the Sikh faith, and, in the Sikh faith, drinking alcohol is forbidden. Mm-hmm. Taking any mind or mood altering drug is forbidden. And to be on the committee and to be caught drink driving is really quite embarrassing, and it was right. I took it really bad. Also standing as councillor as well. It was in the papers as well that I got caught drink driving. So I just went on a mad bender for about 9 months. I was drinking heavily anyway. So from sort of July to the following year, January, I was just on a mad bender. I mean, 2008, I'd lost count how many times I've been in hospital for detoxes. 2009, I was in there again, and I always remember the consultant coming around in the morning with the team of doctors, and he shook his head and he says, "This is your last chance." My wife had kicked me out. My mum and my brother didn't want to know. They thought I'd been taking the piss too long and thought enough is enough, and we're going to support your family. And, so, waking up in police cells, having to sleep on park benches, being shunned by my own community, people I grew up with, went to school with, college, used to cross over onto the other side of the road if they saw me coming along.
Wow.
People just didn't want to know me. So it was a lot, really. It was very painful. But the only thing I knew, the only thing that I knew how to comfort this pain was alcohol. That's all I knew. And that had become my crutch. And it was after 2009, I remember coming out of hospital, waking up at my sister's house. I have 2 sisters. They both live in Derby, and they're the only ones who sort of were willing to tolerate me. And even though I was living with them, sometimes I'd take the piss and be drinking secretly. So I remember waking up at my sister's house, and I just thought enough is enough. I'd had enough. I'd accepted the fact that my marriage was over. Probably won't see my kids again. I've got 2 kids, but I was willing to accept that because I just wanted my life back. I just had enough. The feeling where the drink had taken me, and that was it really for me. That was a starting point, and I was introduced to the rooms of recovery, and what I experienced in there was just amazing. The love, and and I'm not afraid to admit this, Josh, either. I grew up in the Sikh faith. My mum's she's a devoted Sikh, and she brought us up in the temple, going to the temple, doing service there, etc. But the love, the compassion, and the warmth and the empathy I received in the rooms of recovery, I never got that in the temple. It's a place of worship. And I don't put that down to because, I wasn't fully connected to my faith or anything. Those people didn't understand what I was going through. It was only in the rooms of recovery a fellow addict, whether it was an alcoholic or a drug addict, understood what I was going through. All my life I was craving sympathy. But I realized when I went into the rooms that it wasn't the sympathy I needed. That was all that was doing was validating my drinking, and that I needed empathy. I needed someone. I remember my first meeting. My last drink was January the 30th, 2009. My first meeting was Friday, March the 13th. And I walked into that meeting. It was almost like I walked in with a rucksack full of bricks. I was weighed down. I just, I didn't want to go in there. But when I shared in that meeting, I'd cried for the first time, properly. There were proper tears. They weren't crocodile tears. They weren't tears to manipulate anyone. And there was no embarrassment. There was 7 of us at that meeting. I remember it clearly. And each and every one of them, when I listened to their stories, it mirrored mine. Whether it's drugs or alcohol, it just mirrored mine. And for the first time, I felt in my life that actually it was almost like a homecoming for me. I actually felt as though I belonged somewhere. These people understand me. I can share. And it was just, for me, it was just such a powerful moment. And I wanted what they had. Some of these guys are in Derby, and I knew them back in the day when they were drinking and using. And it was just, for me, it was just, it was amazing how they changed. Just their language, the words they used, they weren't the same people. And I wanted that. And so I stuck around with them, and it was just great. And I also know, recently I've been involved with you guys and the work you do. And I realized the pain and the misery I, put my family through. My wife, my 2 kids, I've got a daughter and a son. And my daughter was 13 when I stopped drinking, and my son was 7. So my daughter, she saw the full extent of my drinking. Yeah, and so did my son. But my dad was an alcoholic. We grew up with that, and I know how painful it is. And so, although I remember my dad fondly because he was a very good man. He was very educated. Spoke English, Hindi, and Punjabi fluently. But once the drink got a hold of him, he was quite a nasty man sometimes. And that wasn't him; it was the drink. So, and what I put my mum through. My grandma's still alive. My dad died at 53. Very young. I'm 50. And when I look back, and my grandma lost a son to that, and when she used to see me, it broke her heart. She did. My family honestly thought they were going to lose me to the drink. And what I put my mum through, when I look back now, I try not to beat myself up about it because I know where it could take me. So, I'm in a good place today, and I just get comfort from that, knowing that my mum could come round today and not worry whether I'm going to be dead or alive. You know, she used to be knocking on the door in fear what state she's going to find me. If I didn't answer the door, she'd have to phone my brother or my sisters. Will you go and check on him? I'm just worried. You know, I'm just glad my mum can come round now today, and you know, she can share her worries and concerns with me. And it's just a nice feeling that I'm there for my mum. And the relationship I have with my kids today is just, I honestly can't describe it in words, especially with my daughter. You know, she had a lot of resentments when I stopped drinking, and the resentments weren't just towards me.
That's right, you're back.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the resentments weren't just towards me, they were towards my wife as well. And that was no fault of my drinking, was no fault of my wife's. And yet my daughter had resentments towards my wife for putting up with my nonsense. And that's what it does to you, this, you know, the alcohol and the addiction. Yeah, I'm just grateful. I found the rooms, you know, I went to culturally empathic meetings, AA, and some of the people I've met in recovery has just, it's just empowered me. It's turned my life around. It's not just given me my life back, it's given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. And, you know, with the work that I started doing in the community, in 2015, I was given the opportunity to present a show on a Sikh channel. It's called the Sikh Channel on Sky, where I was given the opportunity to share my own journey. And I shared my journey openly and freely. And I was offered the chance to present that. And I've been presenting that since 2015. And,
Wow.
you know, from there, it was kind of snowballed. People started phoning in for help. And we were just signposting people, really. You know, some people just didn't know alcoholics or addicts, didn't know AA, they didn't know about AA. They didn't know they could go, they didn't know there were service providers such as, you know, the CGLs, Turning Point Aquarius, etc. And some didn't even know they could go to their GP and talk about this confidentially. And, you know, for some of them, just talking about my own journey, it helped. And, but then in 2016, we decided to set up the Sikh Recovery Network. And that was mainly for the Punjabi Sikh community, because when I started presenting the program, you know, I used to say, well, it's a big problem in our community. Well, what do you think about it? It's a big problem in every community. The problem we have in the Punjabi Sikh community and some of the other Asian communities, we want to sweep it under the carpet. We don't want to talk about it. There's a lot of stigma attached to it, and it's still a very taboo subject. You know, some of the labels, you know, that get attached to you, pisshead, you know, some nasty things, and even in their own language, Punjabi, they can be even nastier. And so people don't want their children to be labelled that. You know, I didn't want to be ostracized by my own community, but I did, and that's no fault of my community. That's because of my own doing. But what we wanted to try and do is, after what I learned, was that I never did this on purpose. I didn't wake up one morning and decide, right, I'm going to become an alcoholic, and this is how I'm going to deal with my feelings and emotions. It's the only thing I knew. And it's only when I came to recovery that I realised that it was a disease. I never knew it was a disease or an illness. But you know, the raising the awareness. We started AA groups in temples.
Wow.
That's been in Derby in 2016 was the first AA meeting in a temple. And
wow.
The Southall, I mean, some of your listeners, people accessing this will know that Southall's got one of the largest Punjabi Sikh communities outside the Punjab. And they were quite impressed with the work they do, got invited there, and we started the meeting there in 2017. Wow. So there's meeting Punjabi speaking AA meetings in Derby, Southall, Leicester, and we're going to start some others in Coventry, Kent. So yeah, I mean, for me, it was all about raising awareness, and I had to get over the fact that, you know, for me, talking about it wasn't a problem anymore, because people knew about my drinking anyway. So if I tried to hide that, it was probably going to take me back to those dark days. So I didn't want to hide. I wanted to be open and honest. And if my journey helps someone else, you know, then I believe me coming on this earth and this planet, maybe I'll have done something good. You know, I've put a lot of people, I've wronged a lot of people in my addiction, you know, and it's probably the people who loved me the most that, you know, I hurt a lot. And, you know, today, if I can just help one soul get out of this shit, you know, it's horrible. Addiction is horrible. And I feel it's worthy. I've been blessed. I've been to the UN. 2016, I was invited to the UN on a drugs conference, New York. And I can't tell you, Josh, the moment I left the house, early hours of the morning, I went on the coach to Heathrow, and I was just consumed with emotions. I just couldn't believe I was going to to the UN, and all the way till I got there, I was just full of emotions, good emotions. Even at moments in the plane, I was crying, thinking this can't really be happening to me. I'm an alcoholic. I was down and out. People have given up on me. And presenting on the Sikh Channel last year, we got awarded the Points of Light Award, and something that I've always been passionate about is maybe for me is making amends with my kids. I didn't know how to do it, but God is wonderful. I've met up with you guys, Nacoa, and I've been given this opportunity. So this is another opportunity for me to make amends in a way with my kids. But if we can encourage people in my community, in the Punjabi Sikh community, that yes, there is help. And it's quite interesting, actually. Yesterday I had a 20-year-old girl phoning about her father, who's an alcoholic from the London area. And, it was nice for me to actually say that, have you heard of Nacoa? She said no. She goes, she took it, wrote it down, and she goes, I will look them up. And I said, look, give them a ring, and they'll be able to help you. You'll get the support you need. And it's all private, confidential. So it's great, these partnerships. And I think this is the only way forward, that if we work together, this is how we're gonna achieve some success. And there is some success stories out there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I might have waffled on a bit.
There's a part of me that kind of, I could just let you talk for ages, because I've been, listening attentively and just sort of blown away by the change that you've been through, right? And where you've come from, and the ability to be able to acknowledge your experience in the way that you have, and then use that experience to create some kind of meaningful change. Well, not just some kind, huge change, right? Meaningful change in the world. And listen, I'm hugely grateful that people like you exist, really, to be able to come through that experience and turn that experience into expertise, really. And I guess some of the things that I want to ask in terms of like the Sikh Recovery Network, right? And what I want to do is to try and get some, sharing out of your way. I want to bring a bit of naivety if I can, so that we can try and help people to understand, particularly from a Nacoa perspective, looking at the project of widening access. What might a child, and you, I guess you've been this child as well, with your dad being an alcoholic in the way that you said that he was. What does a child within a Sikh family, what difficulties in accessing support might they face that somebody that grows up in a more, in like a non-Sikh family, what kind of troubles are they going to face in terms of reaching the access to the services that they need?
I think one of the first barriers is they just don't know there's help out there. Whether it's culturally or even in the mainstream. And some of the families that live in extended families, some families will live 2 or 3 families still living together. So
right.
You could have a husband and wife living with their parents. So the kids are living with the grandma or granddad. So they're going to be pressured. They don't want anyone to know about the problems at home. Right. So if the child goes outside and tries to seek help, the parents and the grandparents, there's going to be that double whammy where you can't talk about this to anyone. Let's forget about the professionals for a moment. You can't even talk to a family member.
Yeah. Does the drinking have to be completely secret? So in the Sikh communities, you said that drinking alcohol is completely forbidden, right? Not just addiction, but drinking is completely forbidden. So the people that do drink, does it have to be done completely secretly, or is there like an undercurrent of?
No.
How does it work?
When I say forbidden, in the Holy Scriptures, the Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikhs' Holy Scriptures, it clearly states in there. I don't remember the passage, but it does state that alcohol or any other mind or mood altering drug is forbidden. Yeah. However, a lot of people apply that to just the baptized Sikhs. So the Sikhs that are baptized, with the long beards, they wear the ceremonial sword. So, but for people like me who trim their beard, we're not baptized. Some people, you've got Sikhs who don't wear a turban. And anyone who knows even a little bit about the Punjabi Sikh culture, they will know that weddings are huge, and the drink there is available freely. So
Right.
it's not done secretly. The drinking in the Punjabi community is done quite openly.
Right.
So,
Okay.
they don't have to do it secretly. I mean, and also in the Punjabi community, the drink is, is associated a lot with socializing. You get family guests coming around. One of the first things some guys will do, or even women now, is get the drink out.
Right.
So in that sense, it's very open. It's widely available. Hence why a lot of people who are addicted to it, they can hide it because it's so openly available. They go to
Right.
weddings, it's readily available. You've got guests coming round, and I did the same because I didn't have to hide my drinking. If I was going out with a group of mates, I'd have a quarter or half a bottle of vodka before I'd go, and then I'd be drinking. But it was just the norm. So a lot of the drinking that goes on in the home is done openly. But it progresses for some people. It progresses into an addiction, and when the child sees that, obviously it's going to affect the child. But then he's prevented to say anything.
Yeah.
They can't talk about it, and one of the reasons they can't talk about it is they don't want their child, or rather their mum, dad, son, daughter, to be ostracised. It is quite frowned upon as well. No, that is hence one of the reasons why they don't talk about it.
Yeah. So it's like a lot of, and I think somebody's just said it here. In all communities, a really strong pride and honor for the family name. Families don't want anyone to perceive them as having something wrong with them or a form of weakness. And I think that's certainly speaking from my own personal experience, I know that there was like this real need to protect my family, and that it was the ultimate act of betrayal to speak to anybody about it. Do you think that's even more heightened, if you could say that, within a Sikh environment because of that? Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Because of I was involved with the temple. I was going to the temple in my addiction, and then the priests at the temple were quite aware of this. I had people coming to my house and talking about this, but I was in denial. I haven't got a problem, and even the priests who preach, don't drink, who read the holy scriptures, because they didn't understand the illness, because they didn't know how else to help me. They're saying, Jaz, if you struggle that much, just have a couple of drops at night, have 2 shots and get to bed. Don't disturb your family. Don't upset the family. This is people that didn't even understand the addiction. They knew. I mean, an alcoholic, me, I couldn't have 2 shots. I needed the bottle. If I had me,
yeah,
1 shot, I had the taste of it. That was it.
Yeah.
So, but it's no fault of the community, no fault of the priests. And since we've been going into the temples, they've had a better understanding of it. And my mum, it took her 4 years for her to say, and she was talking about someone else, asking how someone was, and she's, well, he's not doing it on purpose. It's an illness. I was doing somersaults inside. I think you find mum understands.
Wow.
That's the first time, and I was like, I couldn't really show my emotions, but I was sat there with her, and I was like overjoyed. I think, you know what? Mum actually gets this, if this is an illness.
Yeah. Yeah. There's someone here, Gifty, is saying that as a Sikh woman, daughter of an alcoholic, my father cannot acknowledge his drinking is a problem. Therefore, there's no room for conversation about it. I really relate to what Jaz Rai said about resentment as well. Do you think is that going to be common within these communities for people not to be able to look? Denial, we know that denial is something that happens to a lot of people, or it's part of addiction in that sense. But do you think, again, that's probably something that is, I don't know, easier or heightened within this community?
It's hidden. There's denial, yes, but it's hidden.
Right.
We hide it. And I think one word that kind of resonates with me a lot is enabling. What these families are doing, all they're doing is enabling that, them acknowledging it. All they're doing is enabling it. My family enabled me. My mum used to lie. My wife used to lie. If I wasn't at a family wedding, why isn't Jaz here? He's at work. Well, I wasn't at work. I was curled up in my bed, pissed up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, in a sense, is enabling. If they'd have shamed me earlier, that no, he's at home, he's pissed up, people would be asking the question, why are you doing this? We just keep hiding, we're covering them up, and the kids have been told to do the same. So they can't really, show how they're feeling. My daughter was distraught. My daughter was broken. You know, she didn't want to see her dad this way, but she couldn't talk to it. She couldn't even talk to her aunts and uncles about it.
Wow.
And, you know, today, and the resentments, my daughter had a lot of resentment towards me, but to my wife as well. When my wife was upset, she'd probably talk to my kids and say, well, I'm going to leave your dad. And then when she didn't leave, that caused the resentment towards the kids. Were probably thinking, oh, great, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Right? But then when my wife came back to me or decided, no, I'm not, then the kids are resentful towards her.
Yeah, and it becomes a family illness then, right? Which is so much
Absolutely.
of what we talk about.
Yeah.
So then when you kind of got sober yourself, you went on to set up the Sikh Recovery Network. What kind of work have you been doing with them to, you know, to kind of break down and pull down some of these barriers that are faced within that community?
The first thing we're on the Sikh Channel, when I was presenting, well, still present Alcohol and Beyond, is giving the opportunity, the people that wanted to share their journey on the Sikh Channel, to give them that opportunity. So, you know, it helped other people to come forward, not just to share their story. It wasn't any pressure on people, but just to go to places like AA,
Yeah,
and for addicts to just show how they got clean, you know, how they put the drink down. You know, we talked about rehab. Some people weren't even aware that they could go to rehab, how much it was going to cost, what the process was all about. So it's about, you know, the recovery process, how to get into recovery and how to maintain that recovery. So that was important. Then talking at temples in front of congregations of, you know, of up to 1,000 people, you know, talking to those people, yeah, and talking openly and honestly, you know. And when I went on that, I just spoke from the heart. You know, I wasn't ashamed of saying that. Yes, I did come to the temple when I'd had a drink.
What, you stood up in front of all of them? You stood up in front of those people and said that? What was the reaction?
I think the reaction, I remember the first time I spoke, my brother was in the congregation. There was a shopkeeper that I actually went in and bought some booze off and on credit and not paid him. And he had to approach my dad. My dad was alive then. He said, Jaz owes me some money. And when I was speaking, I could see the emotions in these people's face. I could see my brother was almost reduced to tears. But later on in the day, when I spoke to my brother, he goes, you know what? He goes, well done. He says, at least people know that you've got this problem. And I think for him, there was a lot of fear in my family that I was going to go back to it. And I think they were happy that I'm speaking about it openly, so people know that no one's going to actually encourage me to drink. Well, the response we had in the temples from the congregation was just great. People said, well done. We need more people like you. You know, and for me, that was nice to hear.
Yeah.
And in places like Southall, there's a brother that shared his journey. He lost his brother through addiction. He's in recovery now. He stood up in front of the same amount of people and shared his journey.
Wow.
So it's given a lot of strength to people, not just to share their journey, but just to walk into a room, you know, walk into AA, go to their doctor. And he was trying to raise that awareness in our community.
Yeah. Was there any negative reactions from anyone? Was there any, like, people that did turn their back and couldn't change or anything like that?
What do you mean that they couldn't turn?
Sorry, yeah, like when you stood up and spoke at the front, were there any people that said, you know, I'm sorry, I can't, you know, you've drank and that's it, I have to turn my back on you or anything like that? Or has the reaction been all about, you know, freedom of shame, really?
Yeah, it was all positive, Josh, honestly.
Wow.
You know, no, I can't say that. I think people were just proud that I spoke openly and honestly. You know, that fear's lifted, you know, and, you know, I feel a sense of freedom today.
Yeah.
Yes, I do a lot of things in my addiction that I am ashamed of. I wish I could turn back the clock and, you know, but I can't. But, you know, I can talk about those now. And yeah, but no one said that. They were just pleased, and I think it gave them hope. And a lot of them in that congregation, their sons and daughters were going through the same, and it gave them courage.
Yeah, that's the big thing. I think I was just reflecting on my own experience. One of the things I was most worried about, I think, when I started openly talking about my own struggles with addiction, I believed that I thought there's going to at least be a handful of people who are really not going to react nicely to this, right? And it never happened. Like, it never came. It never came from anybody. And in fact, like you, there were people coming out of the woodwork saying, like, me too, you know, I've been in this as well. And so I just think it's important for people to understand that. When you thinking about Nacoa as a charity, and maybe I'm going to read a couple of these things in a moment as well. Thinking about us as a charity and supporting young people, do you think there's anything that we could kind of be doing that's going to help reach some of the young people within these communities that may not be being reached now? Is there, what sort of action do you see that could be taken to help that?
I think we need to support each other. You know, you need to be present at our awareness days and some of the events we do, right? And likewise, we need to be present at yours. We need to work together. You know, people need to know. And it's like people don't know some of the recovery services that are out there. You know, in Leicester, Birmingham, we've referred people to, you know, the services, and they've got into rehabs through the NHS. There's a guy in Leicester that we referred to Turning Point. He's just got into Southampton on a 3 to 6 month treatment program, and that's great. You know, I did an interview with a lady. Her videos on YouTube only. You know, she accessed a trauma rehab in Nottingham.
Wow.
Through Turning Point, she phoned us first. We referred her to Turning Point, and you know, she's a year clean. She was a year clean, and we did 2 interviews with her. One where she shared her journey, and then she celebrated a year in recovery on the 8th of April.
Wow.
That's a success story. But you know, if we can work alongside people like yourselves, then these children who are suffering in silence, they might find the courage. Yes, well, they might not want to talk to people in our own community because of the fear that, you know, and the confidentiality and the anonymity is a big issue for people. But if they can reach out to someone else and talk about how they're feeling and get that support, that's great. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be through the Sikh Recovery Network. It can be through AA, NA, and for the kids, it can be Nacoa. You guys are the experts, right? So, you know, we need to learn from you, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to work with people like you, and I think it's great that if we could have you in the temples and showcasing what you do, because I can tell you, 99.9% of the Sikh community in Punjab, I don't even know Nacoa exists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you know, if that, and there's a big problem in our community. Alcohol is rife. It is kind of accepted as a norm, but it's breaking families apart. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's funny because, well, not funny, the wrong word, but just as you're saying this, I see the gift he's written. I feel addiction is normalized in the Sikh community. I'm often surprised how prevalent it is in our community, as if it's part of the married family life. Do you think that's the case? Is it sometimes?
It's normalized. She's wrong. The drinking, even in some of our Punjabi songs, you know, like with some of the rappers and everything, now they're glorifying gun crime, etc. With ours, we glorify the drinking.
Yeah.
I can think of half a dozen songs off the top of my head that when I was drunk or when I was drinking with my mates, we'd put them songs on.
Yeah.
Because it was glorifying the drinking.
Yeah, so it's like seeping through the kind of whole community in that way.
Yeah, and Gifty will know it's very macho in the Asian Punjabi community anyway to drink. If you're with a group of guys and you're not drinking, you regard it, I can't even use those words, but it's frowned upon almost if you're not drinking.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of happens within the culture in which I grew up in too, but probably to a lesser extent, right? Where it's like it's frowned upon to drink too much, right? But you're also expected to drink a lot. Do you know what I mean? So there's like that weird contradiction of like, you know, you're stigmatized if you drink too much, but if you're somebody who doesn't drink enough, you're also kind of stigmatized, right? And I guess what I'm hearing from you is, especially with like some of the scripture that you're talking about that says that it's forbidden in that sense, there's almost like this like heavy contradiction that's going on there, and I can imagine it just makes people feel really, really lost, right? You like, I don't know. Let me ask you: when you were drinking, was there a sense of like, I'm going to be ostracized from the community for drinking in the way that I do, and so maybe I need to stop? But then I might be ostracized from the community for not drinking at all, right? If I stop, so then what do I do? Was there a sense of that for you?
No, not really. I think for me, when I was drinking, if you want to call it normally, when I was drinking sociably,
Yeah.
it was okay. It was accepted. Even my family accepted it. Despite my dad being an alcoholic, my mum accepted it. My wife accepted it. My siblings accepted it. It's only when it became excessive and for people to see that it was problematic, right? That it became an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when people could see that it was a problem, then the alarm bell started ringing. We need to do something about this.
Right. Yeah. But it was a lack of knowing where to turn as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, my family didn't know which way to turn. I went to an AA meeting in 2008. I hated it.
Yeah.
You know, I remember walking out of there early and going to the shop and getting a drink, and I wasn't ready for it then. It was only, and you know, as you know, you've got to want to change.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. You know, you have families. We get a lot of families phoning about their loved ones, but you know, very few of those addicts are calling themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a problem. I want to invite questions from people that while I read some of these. There's another question here. Amanda says, women with alcohol dependency often bear the burden of biases of alcoholism and are placed in a discredited social group. How do you reach women with alcohol dependency within the Sikh faith group?
You know, I'm really pleased Amanda's asked that. It's a difficult one, but with people like Alni, who we interviewed, who have come out, she's encouraged people to come forward. We've got another lady in Southall. I did some work with her with the BBC. I've interviewed her, but it was anonymously. But you know, when people hear their stories, it gives them strength and courage to come and talk about it. And I think one thing that I do emphasize when I talk at the temples is that this isn't just confined to the men in our community. The women, more and more women are phoning up and have got drink problems. But in the Punjabi, the women, you talked about drinking secretly. The women are drinking secretly.
Right.
Not all of them. Not all of them.
Yeah.
You know, some are sitting at home with their husbands having a glass of wine while he's having a beer, etc. But some women are having to drink secretly. You know, we've just received a phone call only this week once again. A woman, her husband found found a secret stash, a litre of whiskey and 6 bottles of wine.
Wow.
And she's just keeping that's over an 8-day period, and she's just keeping herself topped up throughout the day. So that's all done secretly. So the women are affected. And you know, it's good that we're getting women even in their 60s phoning.
Wow.
There's a woman that phoned. She was 66, and I think she must be celebrating 4 months now.
Wow.
Of sobriety.
Wow.
So she's doing more.
Yeah.
And she's getting support of other women as well from the Punjabi Sikh community. And that's great. So, you know, when I talk and, you know, even on the TV or in the temples or anywhere, we try and encourage women to come forward and also say that this isn't just confined to men in our community, it's women as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the sharing of the stories, right? I think people forget or perhaps don't even realize just how powerful it is when you hear somebody voice things about themselves that perhaps you've been going through all your life and kept to yourself. It's, you know yourself, the impact it has on you is incredible. Gifty says, thank you for this talk. Even though I discovered Nacoa as an adult, I felt it has helped a lot of my inner child healing. Yeah, definitely. I'd like to ask Jaz Rai what positive role he sees for faith for people seeking recovery from alcohol problems. Good question.
Yeah, I think for some people that contact the Sikh Recovery Network, they don't want to go to AA because they feel that AA is going to convert you into Christianity. But, you know, I say if it's going to convert you to Christianity, we won't be having it in our temples. But for some people, connecting with their faith is important. And a faith-centered approach in recovery for them is important. You know, for me, you know, one size doesn't fit all. You know, just because AA worked for me, group therapy worked for me, it's not going to work for you. You might find something else that you connect with. You know, and if it's your faith that works for you, that's great. If you can get recovery and sobriety or clean time through your faith, that's great. You know, my faith, you know, even despite me being connected with my temple, playing the drums there, the tablas, with the priest being on I believe I was probably never so disconnected with my faith. It's only recovery that's reconnected me with my faith. I can actually go to the temple now, sit there for a few moments and actually connect. I couldn't do that before. My
Yeah.
mind was all over the place. I just want to get out of that place sometimes and just go for a drink.
Yeah.
I'd come out of a committee meeting discussing temple issues. On my way home, I'd get half a bottle of vodka. And I'd have that in the car. I'd be drinking and driving, right? And then go home and come out again for another half a bottle.
Yeah.
So how could I be connected? There's probably no bigger hypocrite than me. Right? But today, I genuinely believe that I've reconnected with my faith through recovery.
Yeah. And I guess the 12 steps is all about that as well, right? The 12-step process is about either reconnecting or connecting with whatever faith means to you, right? The 12 steps, that's literally what they're about. And there's no hidden pretense behind it and what faith it is that you return to. It's just a process to return you or connect you to that, right?
Definitely, and I genuinely believe that. I'm glad you said that, and I don't care. I'm sure. I believe whatever faith you're from, whether it's Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Jehovah's Witness, if you look at those 12 steps, they will run parallel with that faith. You know, giving back, doing service. You know, looking at your character defects before pointing the finger at someone else, handing your will over to God, acceptance. These are all in every faith. These, you know, they're fundamentals in every faith. It doesn't matter which faith you're from. You know, every faith says give back.
Yeah.
Every faith says hand your will over to God.
Yeah.
You know, whatever your understanding of God is.
Yeah. Hussein has just said it would be good to do the Nacoa awareness training. We should actually look at doing the Nacoa awareness training. I think it'd be brilliant. We could bring it to the Sikh Recovery Network maybe, or we could bring it to one of the temples. Even better, right? That would be pretty amazing. Hillary, I see. I don't know if you've met Hillary or spoken on the phone or anything like that, but she's watching today. She says, working with you is especially exciting. We can reach so many more children together. Thank you for your courage and honesty. And then Gifty has said, not being able to strike the right balance with alcohol is seen as weak character flaw, but we must move away from this rhetoric. Addiction is a disease, not a moral failure. I guess you do a lot of that kind of work with the Recovery Network.
That's right, yeah.
And Kerry, one of our ambassadors, says you're really making a huge difference, not just for the person drinking, but for the generations to come. So thank you. Gifty has asked, do you think there could be any additions or modifications to the 12 steps and part of the 12 step? And what part of the 12 steps mean the most to you? So let's do the first bit. Do you think there could be any additions or modifications to it? Big question.
No.
Yeah.
Simple that you can't.
Yeah. For anybody, I think anybody that's followed the 12 steps in that way, they sort of cut the hours they come. But probably, you know, from my point of view, the one thing that I would say to take that step further is that the 12 steps are literally about first, really, let's say, admitting that you've reached that stage where you can't go on, right? That life has gone out of your hands. And then essentially the next, I mean, that's the sort of first 3 steps. And then the rest of the steps are really about connection to whatever faith is for you. Whether that's the universe, the moon, the sun, animals, a spirit from your own past, or any kind of religion, the 12 steps are for that. And actually, I think they could be used for anyone to reconnect with anything, right? Because it's just a process. That's all that the 12 steps is. And then alongside that, right, and I don't know if you want to elaborate on this yourself, but you have that group therapy that's with you, a group of people bonded on their commonality of struggling with the same thing.
No, I think you put that brilliantly, Josh. I couldn't agree more with you. And you can't modify them, but you know, you just said it there. You know, the step 1 is the key for me. I had to surrender first. I had to hold my hand and say, look, you know, my life's unmanageable. I'm powerless over this, and everything else after that just followed.
Yeah,
you know, as long as I bear that in, as long as I get up in the morning and just you know, that affirmation for me is the most powerful one.
Yeah,
that I'm powerless over the first drink. And as long as I stay away from that first drink, I'm okay.
Yeah, and the whole, when you look at any fellowship, 12-step fellowship, be it Overeaters Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, the word anonymous in that, if you actually trace it back, was originally about how we become anonymous through the disease. And what that means is, you know, you could get the rich man can sit next to the poor man, can sit next to the Christian, can sit next to the Sikh and the Muslim, and you're all anonymous from that because you're bonded by your struggle, right? So the anonymity bit, and that's, I guess that kind of links to everything that we're talking about here with Nacoa, which is, it doesn't matter who you are or what you are. If your family is struggling with this illness, then, you know, anonymity in that sense is you deserve help and support in the same way everyone else does. Let's do the second part of the question. I think you kind of answered it already, but Gifty said, what part of the 12 step mean the most to you? You just sort of said that, kind of admitting that you were powerless. Is that probably the biggest bit for you?
I think step 4 was a big one for me, is accepting my character defects. That was painful.
Yeah.
You know, I had a lot of ego in me. I don't know why, you know, but I was very egoistic. Humility, I don't know what that word meant, right? You know, so yeah, you know, stripping away the layers and getting to the core of who I was painful.
Yeah.
I didn't like something, but you know, it had to be done.
Yeah.
And I have to do that on a daily basis. It's just remind myself that I can be an idiot, you know, and I have to, you know, tone it down. I have to pick up the phone to my sponsors still today and say, look, I'm struggling today. I need help. What do I do? You know, and just be reminded on a daily basis that, you know, getting on your hands and knees and praying for forgiveness, praying for strength, praying for courage, you know, and that is important for me.
Yeah, incredible. Incredible. This one here, I'm sorry, the name says Iram Minya. I'm not sure if I said that right. What things do you think the NHS or service providers can do to improve accessibility for ethnic minority groups and tackle the barriers they might face?
I think, you know, this question crops up quite a lot, right? But I've been speaking to service providers, and I think the one thing we've got to understand is, and I'm not going to call them, I know a lot of them are trying their best to get into the communities and do their best. But, you know, the problem is a lot of our communities aren't accessing those services. So we can shout from the rooftops and say, oh, you know, the NHS or the service provider aren't doing enough. But if the BAME community isn't accessing them, what do you want them to do? You know, and it's down for us to work with these communities, and we're doing that with the likes of Turning Point, Aquarius, etc., and the NHS. So, you know, we're trying our best, but I think the communities have got to come together. All the communities, you know, they've got to come together and access these services and take these people into your places of worship. Because if you look at these places of worship, they're the hub for the community. You can have a community and they're not going to attract hundreds of people on a Sunday. So those people have got to come to your community. They're not going to go to the service providers or the NHS. If they come to you, they can talk to them, and it just, you know, some of those questions they want to ask, they might even be answered when they, through their literature, you know, through them talking at the temple.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a very easy one for me to say, oh, the service providers aren't doing enough, you know, but we're not accessing those services either. Yes, there's not enough trained interpreters, etc., etc. But if these people access them more, then these services will come along as well.
Yeah. So it's further down the line almost. I definitely feel like we need to get a Nacoa talk in your temple. Come in and do it. I think it'd be amazing.
You're welcome.
Let's do it. Look, we're sort of coming a little bit close to time. I want to just give people a little bit more opportunities to ask some questions. One of the questions I always like to ask everybody is, if you could go back now and speak to the young boy that you were before you started drinking, before things were, so let's say, you know, I'm not sure what age, but what would you say to him? What would you say to the boy that you were?
I started drinking when I was 17, and to be honest, Josh, I don't know. Yeah, I'm grateful for this journey. I know it sounds daft, but I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't have this. You know, I went through what I went through for a reason. You know, I saw my dad. You know, I got 2 sisters and a brother. You know, they were brought up in the same environment. They were exposed to the same, you know, chaos, what my dad, you know, would do. But they never turned to, my brother's never touched a drop of alcohol. He's 47. You know, my sisters probably have the odd glass of wine. Oh, that's a tough question. I'd love to say, you know, don't touch it. I remember being in an ambulance with my dad, and the ambulance driver saying, look, your dad's teaching you a valuable lesson. Don't drink. And what did I go and do? You know, I remember my grandma saying that, you know, Jaz, you exceeded your dad. You know, we didn't think you'd be worse. You know, anyone could be worse than your dad. But, you know, you've topped him. Yeah, I'd love to. I honestly don't know. I don't know what I would have said to a younger version of me.
Yeah. I often think back to, I read one of Russell Brand's book a while back, and he said that I think it was his therapist or something, said to him, if you could go back and speak to the younger self, you should say to them, thank you for finding a way to keep yourself alive in the world at that time. And like that kind of resonated with me, because that was the things that I did were where I was at in that part of my life and brought me to where I am today. Amanda just said that Hillary introduced the Serenity Prayer to me. It's a key spiritual tool. You'll know this yourself, Jaz, but it's the Serenity Prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And then she says, thank you, Jaz Rai, for your courage and honesty. Hussein said we should definitely do I've just waved at someone there, sorry. Hussein says we should do a talk in the temple. It would be amazing. Amrit says, thank you both for coming out the other side and helping others as a result of your experiences. Outstanding work. Very much appreciated. As we draw this to a close, Jaz, look, firstly, I want to say a massive thank you. I'm really pleased that we have found one another, as in Nacoa has found you and you have found us. And I sort of feel excited by what we may be able to do going forward together. Before we kind of close the session down, is there anything that you'd like to add that you feel that we haven't covered today, or anything that you'd like to say to anybody that might be watching this?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And like I said before, you know, I just feel blessed that I've been able to do what I am doing. And, you know, I'm grateful for every moment that I have today. And if I hadn't to been on, you know, if I hadn't have, you know, I consider my time drinking hasn't been wasted. If I wasn't here today, if I was dead or in some institution or in prison, then it would have been wasted. And, you know, no, I'm just excited as well. I just hope that working together that we can bring some change and bring some hope to those kids that are struggling.
Yeah.
You know, for me, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You know, I know we've made some differences with some addicts. They've managed to turn their lives around and they're volunteering and helping others. But if we can do the same for some kids, you know, that'd be great. And we need your support, because we're not the experts. You know, we've got lived experience, but you guys have got the tools and the mechanism. You know, you go out there every day on a daily basis. So, you know, yes, we will do a program at the temple. We will bring the awareness of the Nacoa into the temple. You know, we will do that. We'll do it where the biggest communities are, of the Punjabi Sikh communities. That people need to hear about you guys.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of kids suffering in silence. And that for me is probably one of the greatest things that's come out of today.
Yeah, no, brilliant. That's brilliant. Look, I do want to ask you this one question, because Asian Oddballs asked it, and I don't want to leave him hanging on this one. How did your daughter overcome her resentment?
She needed time. She needed time to heal. You know, from the age of 13 to about 19, she was just full of resentments. You know, she just hated me. I'd go as far as that. She hated me. You know, we couldn't talk. Well, we did talk, but there's a lot of there was just a lot of resentments there, anger there, with what I put her through. But you know, today, like I said, me and my daughter we're like best friends, and you know, I sometimes feel that she's closer to me than she is with her mum. You know, because you know, we can talk about anything. So you know, and it can happen, and they need time. You know, she needed time to heal.
Yeah, time and that relationship, and a willingness, I guess, from your side, right, to try and right those wrongs and meet her and amend the situation as well is huge. So look, a lot of people are saying thank you. Piers has said you're a fantastic guy, Jaz, and I'm proud to be working with you. Hussein says thank you, Jaz. Great to hear a bit of your story and your journey, and great interview. Josh, look, from my perspective, and Asian Oddballs just said thank you. He appreciates it for the way that you've answered this question there. from my point of view, I want to say a massive thank you. Somebody else says, thank you for helping me to understand the issues in more depth. See, when you have these kind of conversations, they have an impact, right? And they reach people in ways that perhaps they might not have been reached before. So from me and my perspective, it's a massive thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing in all aspects, not just in your community, but you know, bridging the gaps and all that kind of stuff. It means a lot, and I'm really looking forward to what we can do in the future. So it's a massive thank you from me, Jaz. And this is the first time we've spoken, but it won't be the last time. Hillary said we'll do wonderful work together, and I have no doubt about that. So listen, I'm going to let you go and get back to the important work that you do. And listen, I'll be in touch, and let's make some things happen in the future. And thanks again.
Brilliant. Once again, thanks Josh, and thanks everyone. Cheers.
Thanks. Take care, Jaz. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you all again soon.